The Office of the Legislative Auditor released a special report September 25th that details inaccurate vehicle registration taxes embedded in MNLARS, the Minnesota Licensing and Registration System. The review spanned the period July 24th, 2017 through February 28th, 2018, and found that 36 to 46% of the transactions involving registration taxes for passenger vehicles were either overcharges or undercharges. I spoke with Senator Mary Kiffmeyer, chair of the State Government Finance and Policy Committee, about the findings.
But what's disturbing to me is that this is a brand new system. As they were programming the system, whether it was DPS or Minute who was doing the software, did it ever occur to them to bring this matter to the attention of the legislature, either before or while they were doing the programming? Because this is state law a long time. And the software previous to this, the inaccuracy was 2 to 5%, and the old software. So here they have the new software, and we're up into, after the deputy auditor, 72%. After the wonderful deputy auditors do a lot of work, they get it down to 41, but even still. And the auditor finds that the poor programming, technology can make complex simple. They can do little pop-up windows, things that help you. They can do ranges. There are so many things that software can do, even in a complex environment. And it seems from what I've read on this report, even those kind of basic system helps are lacking and should be included. So it's very disappointing to see this. The legislature sets the policy and has the funding. We have given them over $100 million already. But even in the response to this, it's the legislative auditor from the legislature who audited the executive branch area, another agency, and found these errors. I would have expected the agency itself to have done their own audit. Is this thing working like we expect it to? You know, if you're programming something, would you want to know, is it working right? Is it doing what it should be doing? And obviously not. And according to the recommendations from the legislative auditor and all of that, strongly says, go do that. You need to go do that. What I'm disturbed about, though, is that the response from the agency wasn't, okay, thank you, these are 23 recommendations, and as usual, in a response to the OLA, by the time the letter comes out, they will often say, we fixed 4, we fixed 3, we fixed these, we're on the way. They give a quite detailed way in which they're addressing each one of the recommendations or the findings. None of that is in the response to this very, very important report. The fact that they've happened is one thing. The fact that that normal, customary kind of response to an audit report is really concerning. Because if you try and blame somewhere else or say it's just complex, well, you knew that when you developed a system. You knew that, and you could have come to the legislature. You were certainly in front of us enough times. You never thought to mention this. So that's where we're left at right now, and so that's the fact that they exist, the fact that the system is that weak and that poor in that programming, and then secondly, that the response isn't very encouraging.
The scope of the review was from July 2017 through February 2018, so roughly 6 months ago it ended. To your knowledge, have these problems been addressed since, or are they still occurring?
Well, again, if these recommendations and in those 6 months and their response could have been, instead of criticizing that, but if they would have instead said, yeah, in the last 6 months, we've fixed several of these already. We've taken steps to take care of this, and in our next bill to include that. They didn't do that. And if you read the other OLA reports, that is very customary and normal to take each one of the findings and recommendations and to do that. I would have expected that, but even that is missing.
The report attributes the inaccuracies in this area to a combination of the timing of information from vehicle manufacturers, from incorrect data entry, and also programming errors. Is there a legislative solution to address this problem?
Well, there may be, but remember, they knew the law when they built the system. There's no surprise. And so, building that into it, doesn't mean that now that's the excuse. I mean, you knew that before. So what did you do about it to accommodate through this programming and technology to account for that, or bring it to the attention of the legislature and seek a resolution? Now here we are, over $100 million down the road, and now we're in this situation. So yes, now that we've sent our legislative auditor to go do this on our behalf, we've gotten the report, absolutely. But this is something that they should have known about earlier. They should have brought to the attention of the legislature earlier. That is their job. That is what they are hired for. They are commissioners, they are managers and supervisors, and that is their job. That's what they do, or should do. And so now that we have this report, yes, we'll take a look at that and consider that, and I'm already doing some research on what other states do and how can we do that. But the shame is, in the meantime, you have over $100 million software built that maybe could have been simpler, and they didn't bother to bring it to our attention earlier. So even if we change that law, what does that do to the current software and to all of that? So it's very concerning and very disappointing, and especially for the Minnesota people out there, for them to have to constantly, in their day-to-day work, taking care of their children and all the things that they have to do in their life. This should not be one of them. Being overcharged or undercharged, and these kind of accuracies and frustrations. There's still titles are issues. There's still complaints out there that are 2 years old and are still not being fixed and doing that. So this is just one more of a string of many that it has taken the legislative auditor to find, discover, point out, and certainly we in the legislature will take up our responsibility and do everything we can. But we're not DVS. We're not Minute. They have the duty and the responsibility to manage their work. The governor has oversight responsibility. They are the ones who are responsible for the managing and for the implementing of state law. And if there are issues they find, to bring it to our attention. If there are things we think of, we certainly will too. But this was not one of them that we were thinking about. We wondered because we had questions from our constituents, and so in due diligence. Now we thought maybe the legislative auditor would go there and say, yeah, they know and they're doing these things. The fact that this was, I don't know if it's a surprise to them, but didn't know this, that's also concerning.
Senator Kiffmeyer, thank you.
You're very welcome.